Welcome to First Unitarian.
We gather on Sundays to celebrate life, to witness to truth, and to be with each other in life's challenges and joys.
All week long, we're building a community, one connection and one person at a time. We care for each other and our children, we grow our souls, and we transform our world.
We're glad you're here.
Welcome home.
Which was written by our Crescendo Fund committee, two of the members of which are singing the hymn today, which is pretty cool. And we commissioned, we had a contest to have somebody write the tune, and the tune is the winner of that contest. We've sung it a couple times, but I think the important thing to know about this is that it is based on our congregational mission, which is listen, open, serve, yes! But I think it's a few more words than listen, open, serve. So I'm going to invite you to say it along with me. And if you don't know it, we'll say it twice. Haha. Through spiritual connection in community, we listen deeply to others and ourselves. Open to wonder and transformation. And serve together with love and humility.
Perspectives rearrange, success and blunder light our way, transformed by wonder every day. Come, listen, open, serve with me together in community, in partnership. We admit that justice starts with you and me. Unlearning white supremacy. Come, listen, open, serve with me together in community.
Good morning. Welcome to worship at First Unitarian Church of Rochester. It is so good to hear all of you, and later it will be good at the end to hear all of you here in person and online. We join our voices together. We are a people with a purpose, a community, a congregation, a church with a mission that we live out and through together. Now that Tommy's taught it to all of you, I know that you all have it memorized, but I'm just going to say it one more time so that we are reminded. Here at First Unitarian, through spiritual connection in community, we listen deeply to others and ourselves. We open to wonder and transformation, and we serve together with love and humility. I'm Reverend Sherry Halliday Kwan. I'm one of the ministers that serves this congregation, along with Reverend AJ, who's leading worship with me today. We've got Tommy. We've got a board member, Barbara, who will be leading us in a heart practice later. Brownlee's our worship associate. We've got Megan and Lynn and Allison singing, as well as all of you. We've got people behind the scenes who make the tech happen here, the welcome happen out there, and for all of you joining online. We've got a whole other set of folks who make sure that Sunday morning happens. It's not Sunday morning without all of you. And so I invite you, if you are online, to let us know where you're joining us from, what block you're on, what street you're on, what neighborhood you're in, or what country you're joining us from. And if you're here in person, I invite you to look around the room, and once you've made eye contact with someone, you can look back at me. All right. Some of you I see are going to have to keep doing that for a little while until someone catches your eye, but that's okay. If you're new or newish here, we'd love to help you connect deeper in our community. So use the link in the chat if you're online, or stop by the welcome desk so that we can help you connect with others throughout the week. Here at First Unitarian, where our building stands, where most of us are joining from if we're online, we acknowledge with respect the Seneca Nation, keepers of the Western Door, and part of the Haudenosaunee people, on whose ancestral lands we now move. If you're joining us from another part of the world where the indigenous peoples of those lands are a different group of people, I invite you to name that in the chat or say that out loud right now. That part's a trick, because you're still on Seneca land if you're here in person. If you're going through a hard time, or you're worried about someone else, I invite you to connect with our pastoral care team. We've got a chat chaplain online and a chaplain in the lobby. If during the service or afterward you want to connect with someone, we're here for you. And if you want to connect with someone, but you're not going through a hard time, you just want to talk about the sermon or meet someone new or say hello to an old friend, I invite you to connect after the service in breakout rooms or out in our lobby. There are a couple special things going on today that I want you to know about. Each year, the board does a congregational survey. We all try to figure out, as the leaders of this congregation, whether or not we're actually achieving the things that we set out to do. And so if you haven't filled out the congregational survey this year, even if you think, I've been here for 40 years, everybody already knows what I think, or I've been here for 4 weeks and I feel pretty new here, we really do care about what you have to share. And so please do fill out the survey. This is our kickoff to our stewardship campaign, the time of year that we make sure that each of you knows that your time, your talent, and your treasure is what makes this church work. And so after this service, online and in the lobby, we invite you to connect. If you're having trouble figuring out how to make your pledge, we can help you walk through that. And Florence, our Director of Operations, will be joining our folks online. So connect with Florence. She's absolutely lovely. You'll see her later in the service. And even if you know how to make your pledge, you can pretend like you don't, so you can meet Florence. All right, everyone. Now it's the time I need all of your help. It won't be the last time, but the first time for today. I ask you to take a breath and settle in. We are going to light our chalice, and I'll ask our worship associate Brownlee to light it. And I'll ask all of you to join in our unison words. May the flame we now kindle inspire us to use our power to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, and to seek liberation in the fullness of community.
Morning. 102. That's how many pints of blood I've donated over my lifetime. It's no record, but it's nothing to sneeze at. I'm a blood donor because my dad donated blood. He was a regular blood donor, and after a donation when he was in his early 50s, he got a call back from the Red Cross, and they said, hey, you know, your white blood cell count is up. You ought to have that checked out by your doctor. So he did. He went and got it checked out, and come to find out he had colon cancer. And they caught it really early and got it completely removed, and he lived out the rest of his 96 years cancer-free. And so donating blood probably saved my dad's life. So I donate blood because it might save my life. But it also saves the lives of many other people. And they say that donating a single pint of blood could save up to 3 people. You know, it's probably a stretch, but I would think after donating 102 pints of blood, I've saved somebody's life, and at least made a difference in the lives of probably 100 people. So isn't that why we come to church? You know, coming to church is good for us, you know, a place to recharge and refocus. It's a place with a caring community, so that if we're down and we need some help, we can reach out to them. But it's also a place where we can help others, where we can work towards a more sustainable earth and a more equitable and just world. And, you know, like donating blood, might get you some cookies. May it be so.
in the fall when we gathered outside in a tent, making the best of what we could given the circumstances at the time. It was a joy to be together in person. And then after the service, I found out that those who were joining online, usually about 2/3 of our community, couldn't hear us most of the time. And they graciously told us, but it was really good to see you all. I feel like those of us in person have just, in a little bit, even the score just a tad. We gather in our bodies, both here in person, but even those of us who are online, the 2/3 who are joining us online right now, they gather too. You gather too in your bodies. But sometimes it's harder to remember when you're not surrounded by other people. And so I'd like to invite Barbara Gowinski to lead us in an embodied practice, something to help us ground ourselves wherever it is that we happen to be. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Reverend Sherry. Good morning to everyone. Am I working okay? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Yes? Okay. So, if you look to your left and then you look to your right, do you feel comfortable sitting next to that person? If you perhaps violated their space a little. Is everybody okay with that? Everybody at home okay? We're going to violate their space in this practice together. First, I invite you, if you're able, to stand. And I just want you to focus on your right foot and take a breath. Make sure it's grounded down there on the ground. Take another breath in, pay attention to your left foot. And this time when you sit down, pay attention to your sitting bones as they land on the chair or the sofa or the floor or wherever you may be. And I invite you to maybe sit a little taller than I usually do, which is sort of like this. So sit a little taller, paying attention to lengthening your spine, and we're going to focus on breath, and we're going to focus on our heart. So let's practice with our breath. Take a deep breath in through whatever part of your body takes breath in, nose or mouth, it doesn't matter. And let it out. And try that again. And if you're interested in focusing your eyes perhaps on your nose or closing them, I invite you to do that for a beginning. I'd like you to place your hands on your knees if you're able. And then I'd like you to take a breath in and maybe open up your shoulders and your chest and look up a little on your inhale. And then press your back towards the back of the chair, curving your spine, rounding over and exhaling. Again, press into your hands, lift your chest, lift your heart, lift your head, breath in, and lower and exhale. And one more time, let's try that. Inhale, lift up, lift your chin a little, and then exhale, come to neutral. Here comes the part of violating space if it's someone sitting next to you. I invite you to take a breath in and lift your right arm up. Let that air out. And now, on an inhale, move that arm to the chair back of the person behind you or the empty chair, if that's okay. And now turn your chest a little more forward if you can and feel the stretch opening your arm. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in. And on an exhale, lift your arm up and bring that arm back down to your knee. Take a breath in and let that out. On the next breath in, raise your left arm. Open that arm up and place it behind the person who's next to you and let your air out. Turn a little more forward if you can and feel that stretch, that opening. Breathing in, breathing out, being present with your breath. On the inhale, lift your arm up and lower it back to your knees. On an inhale, raise your chest up, lower your shoulders down your back, and look up. Lifting your head, breathing in, holding it there for a breath. Exhale while you're looking up. Inhale again, And exhale, come to center. And here's the tricky part. Lift both arms up. And if you can't, go in front of the person. If you can, go behind the person, navigating and negotiating, nobody hitting. Pressing your arms back a little further, opening the chest, opening the heart. Take a deep breath in again. Raise your arms up. Bring them down to your knees. I invite you now to take your hands and place them on your heart. Is it beating a little faster? Can you feel it? Notice your breath. Notice the opening across your shoulders and your shoulders down your back. Place your hands on your knees. Take a deep breath in. Flip your hands over. And breathing in and being centered. When you're ready, you may open your eyes again. I invite you to participate with open heart, both stretched in muscles and in breath, for the continuation of this practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, for leading us in that centering and stretch and breathing. And now with our bodies and breath and hearts a little more open, a little more engaged, I invite you into a spirit of meditation, prayer, and reflection. Great mystery which grounds us and surrounds us. Divine presence known in many ways and by many names. We find ourselves this morning and this week and this month moving in myriad ways through the mud of life, slogging through a global pandemic, recognizing its anniversary and entering its third year, struggling ourselves to hold all the grief of the world. From war-torn countries the globe over, with human beings of all races and ethnicities and nationalities unequally impacted by the machines of war and empire, unequally benefited by the outpouring of support and aid. Our grief for fear of what the future may hold for our children, the world that they will inherit, and the forces of bigotry and intolerance that would deny and censor the beautiful diversity of gender identity and expression that is inherent in and beloved of humanity. And so we pray for peace, we pray for safety, for the hope of a society, community of communities marked by love, acceptance, and compassion, rather than by hatred, fear, and division. For an end to all injustice, though that struggle may ask much of us, maybe even more than we have right now. And so may our ragged spirits be fortified in community, bathed in spirit, held in a larger love. Spirit of life, help us to notice and celebrate the beautiful ways in which we grow and change as we move through the creative clay of life. Help us notice and express and give shape to the gratitude for all the blessings of our lives. And may you be with us now as we hold silence together, making space for our own breath and for the still, small voice within to come forth and add to the collective prayer from the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. Amen. And blessed be. Let us now enter into a ritual of community care to bring what is heaviest on our hearts or most present in our mind and lay it on the altar of community and spirit, honoring the complexities of life, the grief, the growth, and the gratitude alive in each of us. Online, you are invited to share now in the chat, and in the sanctuary, you are invited to arrive at one of the 4 altars in the aisle and light a candle using the taper lighting from the pillar in the center. Light a candle for your grief, gratitude, growth, or whatever it is you bring on your heart this morning. May we now share in this ritual of community care. For ourselves, for each other, and for our world is now held in loving community and by the larger love which holds us all always. May it be so. Blessed be.
I invite you to sing with us, Open My Heart.
Open my heart. Open my heart. Open my heart. Open my heart. Open
Each week, members and friends generously contribute to our offering, which helps to sustain and to grow our community. This collection supports the work and witness of our church, and each week we give half of our collection to a partner organization helping those in need and creating to work towards a more just and loving world. This week we are sharing our plate collection with Rock Maiden. Rock Maiden is a Rochester-based community organization initially formed to support Ukraine's democratic voices at Kyiv's Euromaidan, and now working to deliver medical equipment and supplies and other humanitarian aid. By supporting these efforts, affiliated with the Ukrainian Cultural Society, we work in solidarity with the local Ukrainian American community to support those now fighting for democracy and freedom as a sovereign nation. You can give online at rochesterunitarian.org/donate or by Venmo or Simple Church. Here in our sanctuary, the ushers will pass collection baskets. Our offering will now be received with gratitude.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fasts. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change, a life from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fasts. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change, alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Marge Piercy. Connections are made slowly. Sometimes they grow underground. You cannot always tell by looking at what is happening. More than half a tree is spread out in the soil under your feet. Penetrate quietly as the earthworm that blows no trumpet. Fight persistently as the creeper that brings down the tree. Spread like a squash plant that overruns the garden. Gnaw in the dark and use the sun to make sugar. Weave real connections, create real nodes, build real houses. Live a life you can endure, make life that is loving. Keep tangling and interweaving and taking more in. A thicket and bramble wilderness to the outside, but to us it is interconnected with rabbit runs and burrows and layers. This is how we are going to live for a long time. Not always. For every gardener knows that after the digging, after the planting, after the long season of tending and growth, the harvest comes.
The short version of this stewardship is we need more mics, so you should give to your church. But the longer version starts, yeah. The longer version starts with something you've all probably heard before, that thing they do when they sit people down and they ask them about their deepest fears, and weirdly people respond. And there's that thing that many of you have probably heard where people fear public speaking more than they fear death. Has anyone heard this before? I'm seeing some heads nod. It turns out that's outdated. Death actually no longer makes the top 5, which feels incredible to me. Death is actually 48 on the list of things that people are afraid of. Above fear that someone you love will die is credit card fraud. So I just want to name that what I am doing, being with all of you and speaking, might be terrifying, but I'm really talking about money, and I acknowledge that that is probably more terrifying for most of us, not all of us. 3 years ago, around this time, my wife and I were walking in a park. We had already come to visit Rochester and met with the search team here. We had already contemplated moving to Rochester. We had already let ourselves start to dream about what it would be like to live among you, to spend part of our lives with all of you. Now, I use you sort of fluidly because some of you were there in that interview weekend. Some of you were merely represented by that team, but wondered what was going on. Some of you, like Tommy, were surprisingly here at 11 p.m. at night when I was supposed to be getting a secret tour. But apparently that's when they rehearse. And some of you weren't even a part of this community yet, but the table was being set for you. The church was waiting for you. I'm immensely grateful and inordinately pleased that you all decided to spend some of your lives with me, and we decided to spend some of our lives with you. And then a year went by, and 2 years ago, around this time, Elizabeth and I were walking again in a park, but things had changed dramatically. It was the day I was supposed to be installed here as senior minister, but we had canceled that, and none of us really knew what was going on, but we knew we were scared. And I had just got an alert in my email, among a lot of alerts, but an alert in my email that said something I had been dreaming of for the past year could become possible. The sauna at Costco was on sale. And this person from Los Angeles moving to Rochester came here with the hope that one day I could be warm by building a sauna from Costco. And in March of 2020, it went on sale, and I went to buy it. And my wife said, "Hey, maybe we should hold off. We don't know what's going to happen." This morning you said, "Well, we don't know what's going to happen. We're in the middle of stewardship. How much of a pay cut are we willing to take so that we can keep people on staff?" How many rooms do we have in our house so that if somebody needs a roof over their head, we could make space for? We had that conversation an hour ago. So now's probably not the time to buy a sauna from Costco, even if it's on sale. And she said it calmly and reasonably, and I burst into tears. And I sat on a rock and I told her it wasn't fair, that I really wanted a sauna. And then two of you walked by and said, "Hi, Reverend Sherry." And I tell you this story not because I want you to think that one of your ministers is petty and cares more about being very, very warm than I do about putting a roof over people's head. I don't. But I tell you this story because part of that conversation was, these are the things you, Sherry, have said are important to you. These are the principles that we've built our marriage on. This is who we are, and we know we are going to do whatever it takes, no matter what comes, to make sure our community is okay. And we're going to be better prepared to do that without the sale from Costco. And then I cried again because it turned out all those times for the last 15 years I thought Elizabeth wasn't listening to me. It turns out she was. And now, in the most unfair moment, she was serving it back to me, saying, "This is who you are." And we became just like so many other groups of people, couples and families and churches who fight about money out loud, but more often, who fight about money internally without ever really knowing what's happening. Now, let's be clear. Crying on a rock in the park in March 2020 probably had less to do with money than all that was unfolding. And I would imagine, as I look out across all of you joining us on Zoom and here in the room, that I'm not the only one who suddenly cried at some point in the last 2 years about something we didn't expect to cry about. But I do know it's not the only time we've had a conversation about money that made one or both of us uncomfortable. I do know it's not the only time that we had a conversation about money in which we disagreed. I know it won't be the last time. Money, in very specific ways, credit card debt or credit card fraud, outranks Americans' fear of losing someone we love. Not having enough money for what you might need ranks in the top 5. And part of this reflects the reality that most of us live in. Most of us live in circumstances in which a medical emergency or a lost job would put us in very difficult circumstances. But that there is enough and that there is money in our lives moving through into and out of our lives is also a reality in which we live. Connections are made slowly, and our reading talks about that in the powerful ways we build community. Connections in community happen through small interactions at Soul Matters groups or during Connections Hour or over coffee, or when you happen to run into each other and say, "Hey, don't I know you from First Unitarian?" Even though the other person was trying to avoid you because they definitely do know you but can't remember your name. Connections are made slowly, but made through repetition, through doing something again and again. And that's how most of us have derived our expectations and understandings and belief about money. My family is half white and half Chinese. One parent is Chinese, the other is white. And we spend a lot of time trading jokes that, quite frankly, dabble in racial stereotypes, cultural stereotypes. And that's an uncomfortable thing in my family group. But I'm going to share one with you because it's relevant here. And one of my cousins sent it to me, a cousin who has a similar racial makeup as a multiracial person, talking about money. And the joke is, my white family, and then a text from my white family, hey, everybody owes me $1.67 for the Q-tips. My Asian family, my dad canceled your dad's credit card so he could pay for dinner. Which are dramatically different things and felt really accurate to both of us. We were like, oh yeah, we know that script. Our parents fight all the time about who gets to pay for dinner, even though we already know who will pay. We already know based on the rhythm of trading back and forth. We already know, depending on how expensive the restaurant is because of the economic differences in our family. We already know, but part of our cultural script around money in this particular family is that you make a show of wanting to pay. And that's how we demonstrate respect for each other. In other cultures, in other families, there's a different cultural script. Bringing my values back to me again in the most annoying way, namely being respectful of other people. My wife once told me at dinner, hey, you're fighting too much about the bill. It's weird and it's making us uncomfortable. For me, coming from my family, that just felt like the thing to do. Each of us brings different cultural scripts around money. Whether you think it's something good that demonstrates status, that can get you what you need, whether it's something you'll never have enough of and need to strive for more of, or whether it's something that's dirty and corrupting and bad and the source of the suffering in your life and therefore needs to be gotten rid of and cannot be held, or some other set of beliefs. These connections are made slowly but through repetition and performance in your family and in the cultural groups that you are in. But like other kinds of cultural scripts, like other kinds of biases, like other kinds of unexamined beliefs, this shows up in any number of ways that control our lives, that do not allow us to make choices as freely and for the liberation of ourselves and others. Though we as Americans believe we are a place of equal opportunity, a place of economic striving and movement and fluidity, most Americans marry and have friendship groups in their own economic strata. Because of the types of restaurants you like to go to, or because of the types of hobbies you have, or because it is simply too challenging to navigate conversations in which some people like to do one thing and other people can afford to do another thing, and those conversations are too awkward, we default to the easiest and most fluid relationships that keep us trapped in the same cultural scripts that we learned as children. I say this not to shame us. I say this not to make us feel uncomfortable. I say this not to keep us trapped. But I will say, after Barbara's invitation to feel my body, I can feel it now. I can feel my shoulders tighten up. I can see in your eyes, and honestly, it may just be my own discomfort. But I know it's not easy. Not talking about money, not being clear about the ways our cultural scripts around money, not being willing to have frank conversations about what money can do in our lives and how we can use it to build the world we wish to, keeps us trapped, makes us less free. So this stewardship season, I have two asks. One is to give to your church, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. It relies on the first. My first ask this stewardship season, after 2 years in which lots of us learned how to do new things, in which lots of us built new connections, in which lots of us re-examined what really matters in our lives, in 2 years in which we've shifted out of the patterns of our lives that used to exist, many of us are finding a rush back to what was before, but also feeling a little awkward, a little disjointed, a little disconnected. And so I invite you here at First Unitarian to connect in community. We're having a series of stewardship gatherings, and they start this week and they go on for the next 3 weeks, and they'll bring folks together in small groups. And sure, we'll talk about giving to the church, but most importantly, I want you to go into these gatherings and connect with people, to show up with each other, whether that's online or masked or at table, whatever which fits your risk, comfort level, and ability, to show up and make yourself vulnerable, to share something of yourself with this group of people. There are hard things that this life asks us to do, and freeing ourselves from the stigma and shame and scripts that we have about money is one of those hard things. But what I know about hard things, whether it's losing someone we love or going through something unexpected, is that it's easier in community. And actually, I don't need to tell you that because you all tell each other that all the time. And over the next few weeks in particular, we've invited a number of you to share what matters to you in this community, the ways that you've connected here. And actually, I'm going to invite Lynn Kinsman to share online with us by video, leaning into both Lynn here on the chancel and Lynn on video for those who are joining online, to talk a little bit about why First Unitarian and Unitarian Universalist congregations have mattered in her life. So.
I'm going to share with you today why I support this church. Simply put, it's a consistent, sustaining force throughout my life, but in changing ways over time. I was recently inspired by Reverend Sherry's workshop under the elder tree to map my spiritual journey like a river. And I realized that all of my adult life, the curves and the turns and the eddies and the stepping stones in that river have had this church as their source or as their witness. First, as a young adult, my husband and I met here at this church, and we've made lasting friendships. As we raised our 2 children here, I've witnessed firsthand the life-changing force that the RE program has on our kids and youth, and as parents. I've had a safe and joyous environment to exercise and grow my artistic skills through music, dance, and drama. I'm always inspired to think more deeply and to stretch my reach through anti-racism work, social justice initiatives, the Greater Good Project, and I'm learning to be a better ally. And most recently, serving as a trustee has deepened my engagement and comprehension of what it takes to bring all of this to the congregation. As a born and raised UU, I value deeply the connection and meaning-making we do here together. This season, please give careful thought to what this community brings to your life and how you can help sustain it with your gifts of time, treasure, and talent. Thanks so much.
And now, all right. There are lots of ways in which your financial contributions make your church strong and benefit all of the rest of us, benefit those to come, benefit our tradition. But today, in my ask, I want to talk about how it benefits those who give. I ask you to connect in community and make yourself vulnerable because I think the time and the talent part is just as hard to figure out, sometimes just as hard to talk about as the treasure part. To come into community and say, this is what matters to me here in this church, this is what's made a difference, and this is where I need help. These are where I, in my life, could use support. Those are difficult conversations. And they'll be fun, don't worry. There'll be snacks for the ones that are at table. There'll be games for those that are online. It's not awful, but it is hard, just like life. The second ask feels a little formulaic, but is a real and artful challenge that I offer to you. We ask, as a religious community, that you give toward the world that you wish to build. Sometimes religious communities will say, we ask you to tithe 10%. And as Unitarian Universalists, we know that our folks' generosity shows up in lots of different ways in the world. So, I also know life is complicated. Income and expenses vary widely from person to person. But here's my formula for giving. I take my income. Post-tax, I subtract any unusual expenses like medical debt or care of a parent, an adult relative. And then I take 10% of that, and I aim to give that away to build the world that I want to see. 5% to make Unitarian Universalism strong. I give about 3% to this church, and 5% to other causes and organizations, people who help create the world I wish. I'm not actually at 10%, I'll be honest about that. It's something for me to strive towards. And each year, Elizabeth and I, we sit and we have a conversation about our values and our principles, and then 15 years later, she shoves it back in my face in a park. And we're growing towards it. And our money works for us to build the world that we wish. Not everybody will get to 10%. Not everybody will get to 2%. And some of you, I know because you've told me, give more than 20% of your income away each month. That's what your life and your conversations, clear, discerning ability to make your money work for you has allowed you to do. Not any of us comes in with the exact same bank account or life experience or needs. But to be able to have this frank conversation, to run through this formula with the people in your household with whom you could make conscious money decisions, is an act of liberation, is an act of freeing yourself from the shame and the stigma and the scarcity with which we often treat money. When we don't talk about money, it means that pay disparities, salary disparities, in particular between white men and black women, but across all racial and gender lines, persist. When we don't talk about money, housing inequality, and what it takes to buy into a particular neighborhood, and whether or not having the money is actually the reason you didn't get that house, persists. When we don't talk about money, well, all of us are less free. All of us are caught in scripts that we learned slowly. And so I invite you this stewardship season to sit with the people you love and make conscious decisions about how much you'd like to support your church and how else you spend your money, knowing that the choices you make are not always going to be exactly as you wish, knowing that sometimes you have to spend more on necessities than you would choose because that's what your life suggests or allows. But that conversation is an act of spiritual growth, of development, one that might open us up to transformation, and one that allows us to serve with love and humility. Who knows? Maybe like giving blood, the life you save will be your own. May it be so. Here in community, I have one more ask of you. I know I've asked a lot of you already, and I know that you will rise to the challenge, but I'm going to ask you, if you're willing and able, to rise in body or spirit, and if you feel comfortable singing, I invite you to sing loudly, to sing proudly. And if you're like, I'm coming here for the first time in person, and I wasn't really bargaining for singing, there is no shame, there is no stigma in just stepping out into the hallway. We'll give you a little bit of time to do that. But if you're at home or in your car, there's no excuse. Singing loudly and proudly is the expectation, 100% of the time. Please rise in body or in spirit.
Beloved, where you lie, I will lie, and your people are my people, your people are mine, your people are my people, your divine, my divine. You go, I will go, kindred, where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, kindred. Where you go, I will go. Where you lie, I will lie, kindred. Where you lie, I will lie. Where you lie, I will lie, kindred. Where you lie, I will lie. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going. But we know within. And we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. But we know we will. It will be hard, we know. And the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. But we know we will. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going. But we know within. And we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. But we know we will. Oh, yeah, yeah.
So we are not going to do it right now, but I just want a show of hands because we've done it in the past, more than 2 years ago. How many of you right now would be comfortable joining hands? A handful. Not everybody, but a handful. We used to do that. Now, how many of you, by a show of hands, would be comfortable, instead of putting your hand in someone else's hand in a global pandemic, which is still happening, but less so, obviously, and I'm very glad of that, instead of your hand, putting your wallet in their hand? Just checking. Without shame, without stigma, without scarcity, may we go out into the world knowing that each of us was given this day, that we were given this life, this time between birth and death. It is not infinite, but it is ours. May we use this gift well. May you go in peace and go in love. And we'll extinguish our chalice. Don't go yet. I totally forgot. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Amen. Go in peace.